All right, let's quick go over chart 3B from your vocab sheet. Now, it looks really long and intimidating, but it's actually not. It's got a lot of stars on it, so that means we don't have to conjugate a ton, okay? So we should actually be going through this pretty quickly. The first one is suddenly, and that's just de repente, okay? De repente. There's nothing else to know about that except for it means suddenly. This is going to be a trigger phrase for the preterite tense. So when you hear this word that does say, hey, use the preterite tense here because generally that signals like a one-time event, and that's when we're going to use the preterite tense. The next one is someone, which is alguien. Alguien. Some other words that you might be familiar with that are like similar to that, but not the exact same, are the word algo. Algo means something, or sometimes we see alguno with a word behind it. And that's often going to mean like some whatever, fill in the blank. So like if I said algunos chicos, some boys. Okay, so that does tell us that that prefix of alg generally is equivalent to some. Okay, then he or she went up is subió. Subió. Now look at that verb and tell me, is that an AR or an ER-IR verb? Okay, we know it's an ER-IR because of the ending of EO that we see right there. So the verb to go up is subir. Okay, now if it were subir, say that generally means like, we're not even going to go there. We're just going to say subir, okay? All right, so present tense, this is a regular verb through and through. It's just he or she goes up. Let's take that off here. Okay, he or she goes up would be sube. Sube. Everything's normal though. So subo, sube, sube, subimos, suben. Preterite tense, it's also a regular verb. Okay. The only thing being that now we have to make sure we're using that new ER-IR chart to us. So just think for a second, how do you conjugate subir into the preterite tense? Okay, and to do that, you're going to need to use your ER-IR chart, which is what? Y, iste, io, imos, ieron. So I went up is subí, subiste, subió, subimos, and subieron. Bueno. But that's a regular verb. Okay, then we get to the dining room, which is el comedor. El comedor. And that's a nice one because it does have a hint right in there. If you look at come, right, which means to eat, comer. And so what do you do in the dining room? Well, you eat in it. And we see a lot of those kind of hints in rooms. So like cocina is the kitchen. Well, cocinar means to cook. Well, you cook in the kitchen. A dormitorio is a bedroom. Well, what's the prefix of that? Dormir, right? Well, dormir means to sleep. You sleep in your bedroom. A baño is a bathroom. Bañar means to bathe. So we do actually see that often. So that's kind of helpful when we're looking at those words. On top of is encima de. Encima de. Behind is detrás de. Some other ones that might be helpful to you would be enfrente de, that's in front of. Debajo de is below. Okay, so those are just some prepositions that can be helpful. Then the next phrase that we're seeing is he or she used to be afraid. Tenía miedo. Now this one has a star by it, but it still has a verb. The verb that we see is tenía. Okay, tenía comes from the verb tener, and tener means to have. So literally, this phrase does not translate to he or she used to be afraid. It's actually he or she had fear. But in English, it's more common to phrase it, he or she used to be afraid. So that's what we're going to go with. So the verb that we're going to be changing is the verb tener. So you can absolutely use this in the present tense, right? We just conjugate it accordingly. So for he or she is afraid, we'd go to tiene miedo. Now again, tenía miedo is he or she used to be afraid. That's actually the imperfect tense conjugation. So that's that second past tense. The preterit is the other past tense. And this one is an irregular verb. And so I had fear that one time would be tuve miedo. Okay, the irregular stem there being tuve. But we haven't learned that one yet. It will come up in later chapters, so it's just kind of helpful to know that that's out there. All right, he or she showed is mostró. Mostró. Now just think to yourself, is this an AR or an ER-IR verb? Okay, and how do you know? Right, because of the ending, right? That tells us this O with an accent comes from the AR chart, so we know it's an AR verb. So to show is mostrar. Okay, mostrar. In the present tense, it is a regular verb except for that it is a stem changer. So in the present tense, we're going to see an O to UE stem change. So he or she shows would be muestra. But let's just quick look at all of the conjugations because remember, stem changers in the present tense happen in the boot. So I show is muestro, you show, muestras, muestra, mostramos, because remember, it's outside of that boot, and muestran. All right, then, but if we look at the preterit tense, is that a stem changer? Nope, it's a regular verb. AR verbs actually can't stem change in the preterit tense, so we'll never see that happen. Then finally, he or she appeared is aparecio. Aparecio. Now, is this an AR or an ER-IR verb? ER-IR, because again, look at that ending. So to appear is aparecer. Okay, is to appear. What if you wanted to say disappear? Well, we're just going to add a little prefix on and say desaparecer. Bueno, so if you ever wanted to say that, it's pretty simple. Okay, so how about he or she appears in the present tense? Aparece, right? And in the present tense, this is so close to being a regular verb, except for, you know what I'm going to say, that yo form. If you want to say I appear in the present tense, it's actually aparezco. So we're going to add a Z in so that it's not a hard K sound. And that kind of fixes that. We did see a similar spell change happen, similar to that in the verb conducir. Okay, preterit tense though, apareció is a regular verb, nothing funky about it, okay? So those are the meat words from 3B. Then we have a few extra words over here. Those are pretty easy though. Sonreír means to smile. We knew that one pretty well. Conjugated form is sonríe. That's he or she smiles, so you've probably seen that. The next one is hacia. Hacia means toward, like I walk toward the office. Nuestro is our, like it's our house. Now, nuestro is what we call a possessive adjective. So because it's an adjective, it can modify in number and gender. So if, like I was going to say, it's our house. So I would actually say nuestra casa because casa is feminine and singular. So this would have to match. But if I wanted to say it's our, our cars, sure. Nuestros carros, right? Because now it's masculine and plural. So just know that you can modify it in all those different ways. And then the final one is the word dark, and that's oscura. Oscura. And again, remember, dark is an adjective, so you can modify it in both number and gender. So that's it for 3B. Let me know if you have any questions, but hope you're doing well.